Yo, Yamamo, Aquaba Strong, so Eba POG Media, so Mistress Safi no aba, ube subscribe na while like a Jumadino, Eddie Amaya, Obitmin, so Ashe Jumadino na Akuffo and so and Sa Akabi, and please kindly click on the notification bell so send a bear. Yet any news we have at a platform, so I won't so. Wahunu de air call any the air by young quay some near fansome do donano any day emperor a ball a day a ra a Jonny Hughes a Akachena Jonny Hughes adding some do dona by a day abba abatuja a bride ura a timino abatuja no so I join a timino when you say be an dean can listen but or no indirectly or also I join it now where's Posey a many a Luton a Luton shells a Luton then the no or joining a team no on also adding your maybe Bratuja as a hair Ghana for Yabotre ne NPP funjai atro some or more yes as or minor aye no home crown banyanko ninkonkuti and some Jonny Hughes edituja bedamase
forever and ever. Amen. Assalamu alaikum. It's Wednesday. Welcome to Johnny's Bite. Christmas is upon us. Next week, as I explained earlier, will be Christmas, and already you can feel it in the air and experiences in the atmosphere. A lot of people are asking questions where they get money to, where would they get money to celebrate Christmas and all of that. Well, I'm sure that the Lord will provide, and some good Samaritans will come through. Yesterday, Auntie Addo came through with a big fat hamper for me. Auntie Addo Molly, thank you very, very much indeed. I'm grateful, Addo Brown, big auntie, and who's since become a very, very good friend. Thank you so much indeed for giving me my first hamper ever in the year 2024. Now, I begin this conversation today and just to inform you that fuel prices have gone up again. Yesterday when I got a message, I was indifferent whether to smile or to laugh. I was asking myself as to whether, this was an upgrade of fuel prices to reset what was going to happen in my pocket. And then somebody came out of the post and said, well, maybe I'm preparing the minds of the Ghanaian people to start asking the questions, and said that, oh, you are preparing the minds of Ghanaian people because the incompetent one has an imminent failure that is going to happen. I said, for a few weeks back, in fact, a few months back and a few weeks back, you had individuals who believed that everything was going to be well with Ghana if we break the 8. Individuals, young, old, gray-haired, senior citizens included, who were very confident in their hearts that as soon as power switches from Nana DO NGR to Dr. Bawumia, and we had broken the 8, everything was going to be okay and things were going to be better. Suddenly, having lost an election, everything is going to be so poor because there's going to be a so-called incompetent person in power. And so the question I ask simply is that, are we really for the interest of Mother Ghana? Or were we just interested in winning an election to make a point? Or were we just concerned about political party and not the nation called Ghana? Or were we just playing politics? I ask these questions. And then under the post, somebody comes to say, this is a very gray-haired man who you could see from the photo, gray-haired, grown individual. I checked the profile. Most of my mutual friends in corporate spaces and other places, knew this individual, the mutual friends. And this individual straight ahead goes on to say, Kwashiabulu. I mean, forgive my French, but it was an insult that somebody is flipping. And I said, but how do you even start a conversation? Fuel prices have gone up, which means that what you spend for fuel will literally go up, and then it will reset what's happening in your pocket. I have been saying it since I started practicing journalism, and I will continue to say it. Nobody can change that. So why is it that, and the question I asked myself really when I sat down to have my nightcap was that so the same set of people who thought that everything will be so well. And Musa Danko has a very interesting, post on it. He said that those voices of reason who were considered enemies is sad for Ghana. And that those voices of reason who could have spoken, who kept quiet, failed Ghana. I'm paraphrasing. There were lots and lots of people. I'm sure social media has been awash with those. Lots and lots of people on social media who keep asking the question. So where are all the voices that used to speak up back in the day? For the past 8 years, some of them were absent, whether they lived here in Ghana with us or whether they had traveled or whether they had been somewhere else. It was a big decision and a big problem. So then you ask yourself, was it really about Ghana? That's the question. And then yesterday to somebody said, oh, after the NPP lost power, all Jonny Hughes' content is finished. And then I laughed again and I said, oh, when we were about hitting the elections, we collapsed all programming on 3FM and TV3 for those who monitored. And we ran a 24-hour coverage before, during, and after the elections. No be so. Those who watched, and yesterday I mentioned, who are giving us our flowers and saying that TV3 and 3FM did very well in the elections coverage. They brought us the analysis, the trends, the infographics, the best of guests, and they were giving us the figures as they were coming in. And I was the class prefect for team, no sleep. I mean, I'll come to work at 12 a.m. or before that and stay on air till 6 a.m. with Helen, Apia Mpofu, Judith Brown, and Sistus and the rest. How do you expect me to be on air the next morning at 6:50 a.m. with Johnny's Bite? So you see, the mischief already is beginning. But it is important to diffuse some of these things because already some people are trying to re-engineer a conversation and public opinion that, oh, our economy is on the right track and in a better place. Was it not just 2-3 weeks ago where we all agreed that the economy was bad? And if you listen to the 1.6 million people who said we will not vote for the government to continue, some of them were talking about the economy, including market women. Yesterday, Sisters and I went to Parliament. We met some of our friends in Parliament who are in government. And the honest admission would warm your heart to know that, and those people haven't changed their position since. Then we sat in the taxi coming back to work, and then we made a comment, and the taxi driver, we were shocked at his knowledge of how the operates. That the taxi driver, and we didn't ask for his level of education, but clearly you could tell that this is not a master's degree or a PhD degree holder. He said the government has not changed. An election had been held. Until the handing over ceremony, the government remains the government. But he said other things that I can't add. So let's not be disingenuous. The dollar to CD relationship, the pound to CD relationship, the euro to CD relationship has not changed that much. Those who import stuff into this country, they know how much it costs them and their businesses. So let's not re-engineer public opinion to start thinking that things are suddenly on the right track and that we are waiting for who to hand over to and how that individual will mess up the situation. Suddenly, because we finished an election and because somebody lost an election, if your light goes off and you complain about it, it means that you are preparing the minds of the people that somebody is going to bring DÖNG兒back. What kind of thinking is this? And then I saw a post from my brother Kamaldeen Abdullahi. Maybe check the folder and see if something has dropped in. My brother Kamaldeen Abdullahi, and he put up a very frantic post that I loved. He said we spent $100 million importing tea roll into this country. He mentioned another products that we spent $100 million, and he asked the question, and we expect the economy to be better. Certainly our economy will not be better. Certainly our currency will not be stronger. But the question is, have we always known this? Over the last 8-year period, did we know this? And if we knew this, that we were importing so much and not producing enough, where were we when we were busily trumpeting to the people that we had put up manufacturing factories to manufacture the things that we require? Toilet roll, tissue paper, toothpick, basic necessities of life. We knew, yet we kept telling the people that we had put up factories. And we had engineered factories, and we're telling the people about these factories. And I asked those questions 2 years ago. I'm not now coming to ask them. I asked those questions 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I asked those questions, maybe before that as well. I asked those questions, and I even asked a point, if you remember, if you recall, that look on your dining table, which of your dining table items that you're taking for breakfast this morning was produced or manufactured in Ghana? I asked that question. We talk about the Polugu Polugu multi-purpose dam. I showed you what our neighbors in Burkina Faso did with $2 million. We are importing tiro worth $100 million. We are importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso worth $100 million. Yet it was the president who stood in parliament and said, because of planting for food and jobs, we are now a net exporter of food, including tomatoes. Kamal Din Abdullahi is a deputy communications director of the NPP. He defended the president to a hilt. It was a matter of record in parliament. So when did he realize that our currency will depreciate? When did he realize it? It should be about country first. That is all I have been about. Country first. Not about a political party, and not about the political class only coming to see the reality after they have lost election and they are heading towards opposition, or they are in opposition. It should never be about that situation. Never ever. If we do that to our country, we collapse our country. So now, I will reiterate it. People who were so excited about Ghana getting on the better path or the best path, if Dr. Bawumia had won elections on the 7th of December 2024, suddenly are the people on social media trying to tell everybody that things are going to get worse in 2025 and beyond into 2028. When as a country and as business people and those of them who do business, they know, please find me Musa Danquest's thing. They know that around this time, a demand for foreign currency, especially the dollar, goes high. Once it goes high, because we don't have enough of it, it affects our currency. Because people are trying to bring in stuff to celebrate Christmas. And we do know that between now and the first quarter of the year, we know that the demand for foreign currency will go up again because people are trying to get in stuff to replenish their stock from what they sold at Christmas. We know this, but we play politics with it. We know, but we play politics with it. We know that the General Agricultural Workers Unions have told us that we have not planted and harvested enough. So by September and all, when we were supposed to be harvesting, we were not harvesting enough. That's why Kamal is talking about the importation of $100 million worth of tomatoes from neighboring Burkina Faso, which is a desert country. They didn't have planting for food and jobs. They didn't have one district, one factory. They didn't have one village, one dam. They didn't have one constituency, one warehouse, or one district, one warehouse. Yet we buy tomatoes from them, a desert country. How did they do it? When we had $12 million, what did we use it for? And there were sane voices. They said they considered genuine criticism as enemies of progress. Sadly, the reward is here. The reward is the result of the election. Sadly, the reward is here. Those voices of reason who stayed silent must remain silent. You betrayed Ghana. I agree with him. Even though I say those silent voices who stayed silent then must speak up, then the people can see them for who they are. Because I am not going to keep quiet. I will speak. And you know, I like something about some of my friends. Let me indicate. I have a lot of friends in the NPP than I have in the NDC. And my friends in the NPP are at the highest places. Most of them. I'm very, very close to most of the people in the NPP. There are only a few of them who are happy enough to take feedback and not take offense and still say, Charlie, my brother, it's been a long time since I saw you. Come, let's have lunch. Come, let's go.
Yo, offer tosu mi no ena yede bro. No mestre says obe subscribe na wa like age media no e dey my obetimi so ase dwumadi no na afoforo enso ensa akabi. Kindly click on the notification bell no so send be ya the daily news be to platform no so awon so wohunu de airco ene de air banansam no etwagu a edi ehim no kyese enye easy Jonny Hughes etwaso at the latest ne some memos do na yede etwaso at the mine na oche de ntia after elections nyoma e be difficult yanko ni konkoti.
Here, actually, let's go and see this, our friend. Only a few of them. Only a few of them. The rest, as soon as you start indicating, they get angry. This gray-haired person I'm talking about, when I went on his profile and I checked, he was busy. Somebody had said something about Gabi Asare-Daku, and he had gone to comment, literally blaming Gabi Asare-Daku because he was gobsmacked. He was shocked that somebody who had participated in helping the government to come to power, win seats in a certain enclave, now suddenly goes, the person couldn't get an appointment, the person expresses shock at it, left, didn't go back to the Jubilee House to beg for anything, and then after the defeat, the person is on air talking about it. This individual went to share it and was blaming the individual. But if I say it, I'm not supposed to say it, because I'm not a card-bearing member of the party. But if a card-bearing member says it, no matter how worse they say it, it should be okay. What kind of a country are we building? If this is the mindset that we have, what kind of a mindset are we building? What kind of a thinking are we building as a country? And what are we teaching the next generation? Politics no longer is about principles. And in the same hour, you can say what this man has said is correct. But if another person who is not a party card-bearing member says it, it is wrong. What manner of a person are you then? What manner of a people are we then? I say the deceit that we enveloped ourselves in, we pavilioned ourselves in that deceit will come and hit us. It doesn't matter if we put John Mahama in power, we put Addo in power, put Dr. Bawumia in power, put Akroma in power. It doesn't matter who we put at the helm of affairs. If we do not stop the deceit, we do not have principles, we will be in trouble. And the principle is that we must not only realize the truth and common sense when we are on our way into opposition or when we are in opposition. We must not. People have served this country. Their interest and their first preoccupation was not to acquire state property and grab state lands and grab state vehicles when they are leaving. People have served this country before. They have handed over property, and people who have gone past the age of 60, 70, they'll tell you this is the home where person A, B, C, D, E lived. The last time I went to Roman Ridge, places where we lived, because of the benefit of the work my father did, most of the places are gone. Around the Tank Palace area, they are all gone. They are all in private. Roman Ridge, all those places, they are gone. I showed you military lands around the airport area. They are gone. Now you ask yourself, if Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Professor Buzia, Dr. Liman, in fact, some of the military generals who came in between, if they were all as greedy as what we have become today, would there have been any state property left? Look, pull the document up. There's a document from the 18th of October, signed by the Chief of Staff of the Republic, telling all state functionaries that the transfer, and I remember some time ago, wasn't Nana Kumia, within that, they had written some letters back then in the Akuffo era. This is the 28th of October 2024. Sale of official vehicles to retiring senior public servants. Per the government policy on the sale of official vehicles to retiring senior public servants, a duty post saloon vehicle which has been used for at least 2 years after procurement can be sold to the user who is due for retirement, right, and has expressed interest to buy. Cross-country vehicles are not permitted for sale. The sale of the saloon vehicles is done at the STC VI valuation price. Besides, before such a sale is undertaken, prior approval ought to be received from the office of the president. However, this office often receives applications from institutions requesting for approved for sale of cross-country vehicles on a variation from in the STC VI limited assessed value of saloon vehicles they intended to sell to their retiring senior officers on the ground that their conditions of service allowed for such variations. Are you listening? Now, it says that we wish to remind all public institutions and agencies that the present policy, right, remains unchanged, and that all such sales of saloon vehicles will be strictly done at the STC VI valuation price. Accordingly, all public institutions and agencies which have provisions in their conditions of service which contradict the government policy on sale of official duty post vehicle to retiring senior officers are hereby urged to, as soon as possible, revise those provisions to conform to government policy and to follow due process in submitting applications for consideration. Thanks for counting on the usual cooperation, Honorable Fremont to all MMDAs, MDAs, the public tertiary education institutions, all state-owned enterprises. There's another letter from Mr. Eugene. You know what they do? Some of their own staff allege that, look, they buy these saloon vehicles and they buy the cross-country. Because there's this fiat that you cannot buy the cross-country vehicles. They use the cross-country vehicles and park the saloon cars to keep them in good shape. So when they are going, on paper, the vehicle is 7 or 5 years old. But then in reality, it has not been even used for a total number of 12 months. And then they buy the vehicles. And sometimes you should see, I've seen some of the documents, they've put a value on a vehicle and you ask yourself, this is 11 December 2024 for immediate release from a Communication Directorate, Jubilee House. Reiteration on the policy of acquisition of official vehicles by outgoing ministers and appointees. The Office of the President reiterates the directive regarding the acquisition of official government vehicles by outgoing ministers, deputy ministers, regional ministers, and other political appointees at the end of the current administration's term in office. At the conclusion of the President DO NGၤR Akufo-Addo's first term in 2020, a directive was issued prohibiting ministers, deputy ministers, regional ministers, special assistants, special aides to the President and Vice President, and all other political appointees under the Presidential Act 1993, Act 463, from acquiring government vehicles. This directive remains in full effect as we approach the end of the President's second term and final term. While past administrations have adhered to a convention allowing appointees to acquire one official saloon vehicle through valuation by the State Transport Company Limited, President Akuffo has reiterated that this practice will not be applicable under his administration. No official vehicle shall be acquired by any appointee of the current administration as the term concludes. For clarity, all ministers of state, deputy ministers, regional ministers, special assistants, special aides to the president and vice president, and other political appointees, including those serving as chairpersons or members of statutory boards and corporations, are required to comply strictly with the directive. All government vehicles in the possession of these appointees must be returned to the chief director of the relevant ministries not later than 3rd January 2025. The directive underscores the president's commitment to accountability and the responsible management of state resources. The office of the president anticipates the cooperation of appointees in adhering to this important measure. Eugene signed that. And I can tell you, as I've told you before, with documents here, there are some people who leave the office who hold on to the vehicle while they have applied for the vehicles to be evaluated and sold to them. That those officials, they have gone on retirement, they hold on to the vehicles. They don't put the vehicle back in the pool while they look at the negotiation processes to try and get the vehicles to become their own. They hold on to it. There are those who are that. And then there are those who have also left, who have not applied for the vehicles, but they are holding on to the vehicles. And then there are those who, for some strange reason, have certain the kind of things that people do to state resources and state property. If you get to know the extent of it, Your heart will bleed. Tomorrow, we will go into some oil and gas issues. Tomorrow, I have a special tribute for Namanwa, a colossus in music. And tomorrow, I will also bring you some further expose. Let those who say that after the election, the content is finished, sit properly. Because when we started Johnny's Bite, there were people who came to me, servants of this government, 3 appointees at 3 different times, who came to me and said that Johnny's Bite cannot be sustained beyond 6 months. After 2 years, they came to me and said, they said it cannot be sustained, but they beg. And I said, oh, I'm not doing anything against you. I am working in the interest of my country. So I will continue to do the Johnny's Bite. You see, if you're a properly minted content creator and journalist and a producer, as it's called in our space, you know your beings and you play by your beings and your skills and ethics. Doesn't matter what anybody says. And to produce content that is fit for purpose, that is consumed by not just, small boys and small girls, but by the top echelons of power and influential people in various sectors every day of the week for more than 2 years, getting on to 3 years. It is not a joke. Some people started it. They started their own editorial. At some point, they degassed and they moved away. That's fine. There's a skill. And if God, this is my pulpit. So we will continue the content. Let those who say the content is finished, let them sit down properly and wait for content. Now, quickly, before we...
Yo, Jumadiano Pompon so in ha and Eddie Jumadiano ABC at the Amamo. Messer say, Paba, obe subscribe, now I like a Jumadiano at the Amaya. But that was it. Sabri Bian so she Jumadiano at the May. Messer, na my entry to say, me Jumadiano and yes strong, na de be a guso, na she Jumadiano, FMA. Elections no, any aftermath and in no, open homes and sons will be an ha. And Messer so say, POG Media. We are here to serve you with the best news and information locally, internationally, and everywhere. Politically, no, ubinyano, ayaha, and kwana ubinyano, bedamase.